Tell you what, let's start out this segment by creating another new document, File New. And again, it's blank page, HTML, none. Click Create. And again, there is nothing wrong with starting with those templates, but I think before you start using the templates, understand how this stuff works so you have a better understanding of how you can modify a template when you need to. I use those templates all the time. There's nothing wrong with them. We're starting off from scratch. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to create kind of like a whole container system for a mock web site. So we're going to start right where we are, and we're going to save the file first. I mean, you should always do that. So we'll click Save, and we'll call this one, we'll call it Index. Now, the index page usually won't go in the Pages area. It will go right into the div folder. So I want you to back down once here so you can see all of your folders. And index.html is the name. Click Save. Let's come up here and in the title, let's type in Working with Divs. You should always have a title for all your pages. I mentioned this earlier, but it's true. I did a word search in Google one time and typed in untitled document and got like 65 million hits. That's how many people out there forgot to put that in there. Don't forget. What are we doing? Well, our cursor's right here, and we're going to click this button right here. We will say Add Insertion Point. We will give it a name, like div1, since this is the first one we're doing. We are not assigning it a rule. Click OK. And there we go again. What I want to do is create a bunch of nested divs that will create a really cool site that helps me work through anything I need to do with positioning that will always work on all the browsers. This one is kind of being controlled by floating, right? We don't want to do that. So what we're going to do is go over to our CSS Styles panel and click the New button for a new style. You want to go to here and say class can apply to any HTML element. That's choose. We're going to give it a name. We'll call this one the container. Remember, all selectors that we create begin with a period. If we don't add the period, it will add it for us, but we might as well put it in. Container. This is my container style that will control that box that we're about to put together. Let's leave this in this document. Click OK. Let's get to work here. Now, we don't have to worry about anything in type. I want you to go down to the word box. Now, in box, change the width to 955 and the height to 600. Now, if you remember what that is, that's the optimum width and height for any document that we'd be working with on a 1024 by 768 browser. All right, let's go ahead and click OK just for now. We now have a style called container. Just real quick, go ahead and select our box because it's not attached to it yet. Select the box, come down here to class, it'll be here too, and click and select container. Watch what happens. Check it out. We now have a fixed box on the screen. Now we can do other things to it, and we'll talk about some of that stuff later. But we now have a box. Actually, let's do one more thing. Double click on container here. Go into the background and let's give that a color so we can kind of see what's going on here. Let's give it a lighter gray color maybe. All right, we're getting started. Things are happening. Now the cool thing now is that if we do look at this in a browser, it's going to be locked. It will not float that right-hand side anymore, but we'll do that when we get some other stuff in here. We do not need any text in this box, so we're going to get rid of it. And that comes automatically. It just says put your content in here. You can get rid of it. The next thing I need another div statement. And this div statement will control our header. So what do? Well, just click inside of this box. Go back and click that button again. All right, add insertion point. We'll call this one div2. In truth, we don't really have to give these an ID because we're not going to really be coming back and controlling them through this tag anyway. I just like to do that. It's a habit I do, but you don't have to. Click OK. All right. Content ID for div2 goes here. I want you to come over here to CSS Styles panel and click New again. What we're doing is class can apply to any HTML element, and we're going to choose a name for our selector. .header makes sense to me. How about you? Okay. Now for our header, let's go into the type. We'll choose a font family, something sans serif because we're dealing with a header, like maybe, let's go Arial Helvetica. That's a pretty boring one. Font size for headings is bigger, so we're going to go 36. Font style, let's go italic on this one. Line height would be normal. Font weight would be bold. Font variant will be normal. Text transform, none. I always like to specify these things because sometimes browsers will do something else if there's nothing there to tell them what to do. Color, oh, let's go boring black. We can always change that later. And no blinking. I hurt people who blink. Click none. So we've got that done for the header. Let's do this so we can watch it. Let's click OK. And there it is right there. Let's apply it to this one. So we'll select it, and we'll come down here. It's the easiest way to do it, and go into header. Of course, the text gets nice and big. If we double-click on it again over here, we have the ability to watch it now. We can apply it and see what's going on. So what's left? Well, let's go into background, and let's change that background color to something different than what we already have. Maybe something a little bit darker. See, now we can apply and watch and see if we like it or not. Don't worry that it's got content for selected. That's just what it looks like. It's fine. It doesn't have anything selected up there, really. Okay, let's go into the term block. Now, in block, we're going to do a text align of center. Makes sense. Most, not all. A lot of headings are centered, so we're going to center it. And we'll apply it so we can see that happen too. Let's go into box right here. Go into margin and type a 5 into the margin and click apply. Watch what happens. See what it did? Now remember what margin is. It's a buffer from one element to another. So it's pushing away from the other element. The other element is fixed, and it's giving us that little space going around it, which is exactly what I want. And then we can go into, if we want to, go into height and type in, say, oh, let's try 45. And if we click apply, it's just going to solidify that box. Understand, if we don't type in a height, the height floats based on what's in it. If we don't type in a width, the width floats based on the width of the browser. So we're locking this box in, essentially. We're happy with what we've got. Click OK. All right. Now we get back into our container box, and we need another div. So we click here. Okay, add insertion point. We'll call this one div 3. You really don't need to name these. We're not going to be using these as IDs. You could leave it blank. It'd be fine. Click OK. And there's our next box. All right, we need a rule for it. So let's go ahead and click the new button again. And it will be any HTML element. And we do want to give it a name of body. B-O-D-Y. And this document only. We're leaving these inside. These are internal. Usually I make them external, but we'll make it simpler. Click OK. All right, let's do this. Change the background color to white. And click OK. Well, let's do this. We didn't do this. We need to do this. Let's go ahead and select it and apply it so we can watch the changes happen. I think that's better than me just running through all of them and then applying it at one time. This way you get to see what happens as we make changes. Let's go back and double click on body now that it's attached to this right up here. We don't even have to have that selected if you don't want to. Double click here. And let's start playing here. Now for our body text, we need a type. We need a serif font. Serif font's a reading font. So let's go Georgia Times New Roman. That's fine. Font size, let's make that about, let's go about 14. Reading text, right? Font style would be normal. You don't want to italicize or oblique reading text. Line height would be normal. Decoration would be none, of course. Font weight would be normal. You don't want to bold it. We're reading it. Font variant, normal. Everything's normal. And none for text transform. And text will be boring black. All right, that's the type area. Background we've already done. We've gone into background and we've changed the color to white. Let's go into block. And let's go text align left justify. Design-wise, left justify is the easiest to read, but visually it creates more of a casual look. If you justify, where the text is like exactly the same on the left and the right, you create a more ordered look and therefore a more serious mood to the document. We're going to be casual. We're going to go left justify for there. That's block. Let's go into box. And in box, we need to change the height to 500. And watch what happens. See, that's where our body text is going. That's why I love these div statements. You can do so much. You get so much dang control out of these things. Let's go into padding. And this is what we're going to do for padding. I'm going to type in, turn off this. Top is 6. Left and right are going to be 12. So we're going to go 612, 612. Now what it's doing is it's making sure that the text bumps down up here by 6, but on the left and the right-hand sides we get a little bit more room, about 12. I don't like my text slamming into a border, okay? Speaking of border, let's go to border. Let's go in here and go in for style. Let's do a solid line. Let's do something in terms of a value, and let's go 1 pixel. This nice thin border, and we'll make it black. We're being boring today. We'll be black. All right, we click apply, and there's a nice little border going around it. Let's go back one more, do one more thing in box. In box, what we need is that margin going on because we want to have the same margin look as we have for the heading. So let's type in a 5. That's what we did for our heading and click apply, and there you go. Click OK. I'll tell you what, click save from the pull-down menu, file save. Let's at least take a peek at this thing. Come up here and go into a browser. And check this out. Now watch this. Isn't that cool? We're finally being able to do something after all these chapters. We're locking our content in exactly the way we need it to be. Let's do one more area, a footer. Let's get out of here, and let's go down here and click in this box. Click the div button again, and we'll say add insertion point. This one is div 4, I guess. I think I'm counting right. Like I said, you don't really have to do this. Just a habit. Click OK, and there we go. Let's come over here, click new. And this one will, of course, be the same thing, applies to any HTML element, and we'll call it footer. Now, different designers, this is important to understand, you're getting, in many ways, my slant on how I create web pages. Some designers will create all kinds of rules for every little thing, like H2 tags and everything. I don't create as many of those. Why? It's just my style. You need to understand that when you work with any book or any teacher, they are giving you, especially in a creative area like this, they're giving you their slant on how they do it. So it's important to understand, once you understand it, to make this your own and go in your own direction. Let's go ahead and click OK. Let's go ahead and go into background, and we'll give it a color. Now, a footer could be a lot of things. We'll worry about that later. Actually, this time, let's give it a different color. Let's be obnoxious and give it something like that. Click OK. Let's apply it by selecting it, and come over here to class, and change that to footer. Check that out. I mean, I just love this thing. It's just so much fun to work with. We have a few other things we need to do. Let's try one more thing here. This is a Macintosh, and I'm looking at it in Safari. What would this look like in Explorer, Andy? Tell you what. Let's click the preview button on Adobe Browser Lab. It's a nice feature. All right, it's going to open up, and what it will ask me for is my top double secret password. So when we get there, I want everybody to close your eyes because I don't want anybody knowing my password into the Browser Lab. All right, everybody got your eyes closed? Let's go ahead and sign in. Now you can stay signed in if you want to. What it's going to do is it's going to try it first in, well, my default is Firefox. And actually that doesn't look too bad. Don't forget this is a screenshot. It's not an actual functional page. But I go up here. Let's do a 2-up view on either side. So now I've got Firefox OS X and I've got Safari over here. I can look at both and decide if I like it. Let's change this one to Internet Explorer. And look at that. Looks great. Browser Lab, you got to remember you got this thing because you can look at and decide what something is based on that information. So let's go ahead and close this down. I think we've done enough for one segment in this lesson. Make sure you save what you've got because we'll be working with the same document in the next segment.